You're listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. Each week, your host, Polly Requa, interviews veterinarians and individuals in the pet industry from across the nation answering pet questions. Bark and Wag podcast is produced weekly for your enjoyment, and show notes can be found at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. That's BARKNWAG.com. Please remember to subscribe to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. Bark and Wag is dedicated to protecting our dogs through advocacy, education, and supporting like-minded dog lovers by selling custom pet products. Bark and Wag is excited to announce our new partnership with a Colorado hemp farm to produce a line of CBD products for your pets. Bark and Wag has CBD pet tincture available in 300, 750, 1200, and 2400 milligrams. Bark and Wag CBD is pet safe, no THC, it's made in the USA, and is CO2 extracted. Please check out Bark and Wag's website, barkandwag.com. That is BARKNWAG.com to see our line of CBD and awesome merchandise. We love pooch ideas for podcasts and merchandise, so anytime send an email to Polly at barkandwag.com with your suggestions.
Welcome to Bark and Wag 15-Minute Vet Talk. I'm your host, Polly Requa. Today we're talking to Catherine, owner of Cat's Canines. Welcome, Cat.
Hi, Polly. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on the podcast. So tell us, what is Cat's Canines?
So Cat's Canines originally started as a dog training business where we started training service dogs and pets, and now it has expanded into some in-home boarding and dog grooming as well.
And how did you decide to start your business? Just grew from the training?
Yeah, so I actually went to school in St. Louis to learn how to train service dogs, and I moved back up to Lincoln and wanted to start my own business because that was clearly the only option for me. So about 12 years ago, that's what I ended up doing.
Okay, so can you let the listeners know the service area that you take care of animals?
So for our pet training, grooming, and boarding, we typically stick to the Lincoln, Omaha, and surrounding areas, but we have trained service dogs for people all across the country.
And I guess, summer's coming and people are going to be going on vacation, and sometimes you can't take your pet. And so I wanted to have you on to talk about tips on how do you find a quality, good pet sitter for your animal.
So honestly, when my business is a little slow and I need more clients for pet sitting, I actually turn my away status to active on Rover, which is a in-home pet sitting app. But I do recommend that people ask a lot of questions and go visit in-home sitters if that's kind of what they're looking for. And definitely, even if you're looking at a boarding facility, to ask for a tour of the facility.
And so if you were to have someone come and visit your home, and let's say you have to go out of town, because I'm sure you travel as well, what are some of the questions that you might ask a pet sitter?
So I am extremely lucky to have my family watch my dogs. But if I were to have a pet sitter watch my dogs, I would ask where my pet would be sleeping at night, how long would my pet be alone, will my pet be in a kennel at all during the stay. I would ask about, with my dogs, they have some allergies, some food allergies, so I usually make sure that they have their specific food and treats and try to let them know that they can only have their specific food and treats. But I usually would definitely take a tour of the home and kind of see inside and outside and see if there's any dangers that could be potential for your animal.
And when people do drop off their dogs at a pet sitter, especially now when someone comes to you, what are the things that you like the owner to drop off for that pet?
So because we've been doing this for so long, we have pretty much everything. We have bowls and blankets and toys and treats and all of those things. So typically I ask people to only bring their food and any medications they are on. A lot of people will bring a toy or a blanket or something that smells like home, which I do recommend because I feel like it helps your pet get a little more comfortable a little quicker.
Okay. So what are the red flags that a pet owner should be looking at when they're at a house? Like, especially like, let's say you have a dog that obviously that might be a runner. If it's not fenced in, that would be a red flag.
Yes, absolutely. I would say if they do not have a fenced-in yard, that is probably a no-go for me. I also say if there are children running around or other dogs just kind of being wild when you first walk in the house, it can be a little stressful for your dog. And to me, I don't want my dog to be staying somewhere that could be potentially stressful for them. I also try to make sure that, at least at our house, I make sure that when you come and bring your dog, there are no other dogs in the living room where you enter the house. So nobody's getting out. Your dog's coming into a calm and quiet environment where they can get settled before they meet any other dogs.
And I think that that's really important to feel or make sure you feel as a pet owner comfortable on where your dog's staying and to do your research in advance instead of, contacting someone, 2 days before you're leaving town. Because, for example, I have a pug. And so I'm not sure how I feel about having another dog who he doesn't play with all the time, be in that house just because we have had scary incidents, just him walking on a leash and other dogs lunging at him just because he looks like a giant squirrel.
Yeah, exactly. And that can be stressful for him.
Yeah. So I just think it's if you walk in and your gut is like, I don't think so, or maybe the person doesn't walk the dogs. I mean, I think that there's just some things that you do on your daily routine that might make you feel comfortable picking that dog sitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely give your potential dog sitter kind of a rundown of what your dog's day typically looks like. So if you do go for a walk first thing in the morning and then feed them breakfast and then they go out to potty, let them know. See if that's even a possibility for them to be able to do. Also, when you're looking at in-home sitters, ask how many dogs and what kind of dogs are going to be staying with them during the time period that you're looking at having your dog stay.
Yeah, and how do you, as a pet sitter on boarding or the boarding side, do people give you their credit cards or do they? I've done that before where I've said, here's my vet. If they know me, if there's anything that happens, just take them to the vet. Like, how do you handle in case there's an emergency? Because you just never know.
Yeah. So typically I do ask for proof of rabies vaccination. I ask that you do administer flea and tick preventative at least 24 hours prior to the dog staying, if you're not doing it every month. And I do ask for your vet's information and ask for an emergency contact that is hopefully somewhere in town, just in case something does happen. So far, we've been very lucky not to have anything happen, but I do like having that information.
Yeah, that's, because that can be scary if all of a sudden they, who knows, choke on a stick. I mean, my golden retriever always has something in his mouth. You just never know.
Golden retriever.
Yeah, exactly. So how do people get a hold of you in case they have more questions?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram, and I believe TikTok and YouTube, all as cat_Collier15. And then also my website is Cat's Canines.
Great. Well, Kat, thanks for being on the podcast, and I look forward to having you back.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, www.barkandwag.com, to your friends and other pet owners. Have a pressing question for a veterinarian? Ask your question at barkandwag.com under the podcast tab. This has been a KFR production. Join us next time for another edition of Bark and Wag's 15-Minute Vet Talk.